Hey everybody, this is Tim David, and today's topic is the absolute best way to make hard decisions when your business or your life depend on it. Because what is more important in life than decision making? What's more important in business than making the right decision and also helping others and influencing others to make the right decision and act on it and implement it? So the decision that I must make is which book cover to use on my next book. I've written a book called Flip: The 4 Levels of Influencing People. And I believe it is a powerful and important book, certainly, otherwise I wouldn't have written it, on how to move people to action. I believe if you want to move mountains, you've got to be able to move people. But how can you do it in a way that is ethical? How can you do it in a way that doesn't feel unlike yourself? So how can you have that authentic approach to influence? And that's why I believe there is a hierarchy of influence. There are 4 levels that go from, sales techniques on up to, again, the highest levels of influence. So I wanted a cover that is going to do a number of things. Number 1, it's going to illustrate that concept, right? Number 2, it's going to be pleasing to the eye. I want it to be beautiful and eye-catching. Number 3, it's going to be marketing centric, marketing savvy. It's going to intelligently target sort of my target reader. It's going to attract the right sort of readers to pick it up off the shelf. And so to do that, I ran a contest with a bunch of designers, and they came up with over 130 designs. I picked 4. This one, that one, and this one. None of them are perfect. Each one has pros and cons. And if I simply look at this decision with one frame of thinking or one criteria, then what I find is that it's impossible to make a decision. So I must use this 6-step process. I must use a holistic approach, use my entire brain, all the resources at my disposal to make an effective decision. So the 6-step process is known as the 6 thinking hats. And I'm going to put on my 6 different thinking hats one at a time in order to make this decision and also to teach you the process of the 6 thinking hats. Hat number 1, the blue hat. Now, the blue hat is the hardest one to explain, so if you get this one, the rest should be easy. But basically, it is known as meta-thinking, right? Thinking about the decision and making some decisions about the decision. In other words, when does the decision need to be made? Who needs to be involved in this decision? What are some of the processes that we're going to use to make this decision? Is there a time frame? These are the sort of decisions about the decision that need to be made ahead of time. I knew that I was going to have a bunch of people involved in the decision, people that I respect in the field of marketing, some speaker friends and author friends that I respect. I wanted their input. I wanted my friends and family to give their input because I don't want to do anything that embarrasses them. I wanted to have just a number of different people, graphic designers as well, not just the ones submitting designs, but graphic designers whose eye I respect, and I wanted their input as well. So in order to do that, I had a sort of contest set up, and I put all the designs up, and I had people vote and offer their comments. All right, so that is blue hat thinking. How are we going to make this decision? Who's going to be involved? And those types of decisions. White hat thinking is facts only. All right, this is logic, facts. What do we know? What do we need to know? Right. So this could be things like what's the budget for getting this design done? Again, what is the deadline for getting this design done? Let's see, what are our options as far as where to find designers? What do we know? What do we need to know? Okay, this one was pretty easy. There wasn't a whole lot of facts because design is somewhat subjective. There wasn't a whole lot of white hat thinking to do. So far we've got blue hat thinking and white hat thinking. We're going to shift gears now. We're going to talk about yellow hat thinking. And yellow hat thinking is, if the perfect design were to happen, what would it look like? And that's where I came up with that list. It's going to be something that's marketing savvy. It's going to be something that is pleasing to the eye. It's going to be something that has maybe a hidden meaning or a cool visual effect or illusion. It's going to be, let's see, all those things that I said earlier. That's where I came up with it, because if I had one design that did all of that, winner, right? That is a perfect design, and that is what you do with yellow hat thinking. So if you're trying to decide who to hire, if you're trying to decide which business to invest in, you imagine that if everything goes perfectly, right? You put yourself in the future, you imagine that moment. For me, it's holding the book cover and just smiling and grinning. And what was it that made me so happy about that book cover, right? So it's the sunshine, rainbows, lollipops, and puppy dogs. Everything is perfect with yellow hat thinking. That's the third hat. You can imagine what the next hat might be. The opposite of yellow hat thinking. We call this black hat thinking, and this is the negative, pessimistic approach, the what could go wrong, how badly can it go wrong, what's the worst that could happen. Now for me, choosing a book cover, this isn't life or death, people, right? This is certainly something that's going to exist and exist forever. Once you publish a book, it's out there in the world. So I do have some significance here, and there are some things that could go wrong. Number one, I could infringe on some copyright and have a lawsuit and have to deal with that. There's a bunch of things that I came up with black hat thinking that I wanted to be sure to pay attention to. But I want to ask you a question. Is there somebody that you know who is great at black hat thinking? Maybe somebody who's a coworker, somebody on your team, somebody who every idea that you put out there, they're just like kablam! They shoot it down and they look at you and just reload while you're stunned, right? They're just, oh, you got another idea? Hang on, I'll just reload here, shoot that one down too, because that's my skill set, right? So this offers that person a place of valued input where we're no longer saying, oh, quit being so negative, stop being such a pessimist, and we're actually saying thank you for that wonderful black hat thinking, and this reduces the amount of complaining that they do and the negativity that they have in the rest of their lives because now they have an outlet and a place for it. But it's also true that it's only 1/6 of the decision, right? And it puts it into perspective. So we now are valuing negativity in our decision-making process. Hard to do. Here's what I call the pre-mortem. The pre-mortem. This is where you take an idea, you look at it after it is completed in your mind, you pretend you have gone through the whole process, and it has failed. It is the worst book cover imaginable for me. What was it that made it such a failure? Right? And that's how I came up with a list of things like copyright infringement, or the printer can't, it's super expensive to do this particular design and my bills are through the roof. These kinds of things came up with this pre-mortem process. And let me tell you, a pre-mortem was worth all of the time that took to get to this point in the video, all of your attention that you could have been doing elsewhere. Pre-mortem will save you from making horrible decisions. And I think, man, wouldn't it be nice if more people just did a pre-mortem and looked, what if I did this? What if I did this? What horrible, and it failed horribly. How can I avoid that from happening? Next, I want to talk about my favorite hat. This is the red hat. This is the hat where you just ask yourself, what does your intuition say? What is your gut telling you? What do you feel about these different cover designs? And when I do red hat thinking, I look at these 4 covers and I am just somehow inexplicably drawn to this one. So it's almost like I had already made this decision. Another way, emotionally made this decision. Another way you can do this is to take a coin, flip it in the air, and you don't have to have a real coin, you can imagine this. Flip it in the air, catch it before you open your hand. You ask yourself, which side am I hoping to see? And that'll allow you some insight into that emotional part of you. And sometimes we have an instinct or we have a gut feeling and we just sort of put it to the side because we don't have anything to back it up, right? So that cover right there, I don't have a lot of logic to back that up. There are definitely some cons to this cover. So that brings us to our last hat, the green hat. The green hat is the hat that is that allows us to avoid a false dichotomy, right? Yes, there are 4 covers that I must choose from, but that doesn't mean these are the only 4 designs. I simply have to pick one of these 4 designers. So what I might be able to do is to choose a design and then with this green hat thinking, be creative and offer some feedback to the designer, some ideas and suggestions to make one of the 4 designs even better so it can eliminate some of its cons and increase some of the pros. So that is green hat thinking. It's a brainstorm. It is quantity of ideas, not necessarily quality. I think I've come to a decision for using this design, but offering the designer some feedback and maybe incorporating some more color and just using some green hat thinking to spruce this design up and have it check more of the boxes for me. But you can also use this process in groups, in teams, in meetings. And once you do that and take people through the process, by the way, if you do it in a group, then one person will keep their blue hat on the entire time. They'll be the facilitator of that particular meeting. They'll keep time if needed. They'll make sure everybody's thinking red hat when it's red hat time, white hat when it's white hat time, and keep people accountable to that. So that's it. This is Tim David. You can find my books, my speaking services and training services over at moreinfluential.com. You can like, you can subscribe, you can leave a comment, you can share this video, you can do all the YouTube things. I appreciate your time and attention, and I encourage you to make better decisions that you can feel more confident in, you can help others to make those decisions, and you can move forward with them.